let's talk about flipping. Now, when I say flipping, I'm not referring to flipping somebody the bird, okay? I'm talking about flipping real estate. Now, for those of you who don't know what flipping means, it's the practice, essentially, okay, the very basic practice is to buy a property, and then before the whole transaction is even finished, you resell it to somebody else at a profit. Okay, so I learned about this. It's been around for a long time. I learned about this, let's see, 20 or so years ago. And it was around before that, but I don't know how much before that. There was another version that's where you buy a property, you fix it up over time while you're living in it, and then you resell it. I guess you could call that long-term flipping, but it's not really flipping because, well, if you think about it, you're living in it, you're owning it, you could be there for years, fixing it up before you resell it. So it's I guess you could call it flipping, but I don't really think of it as flipping. So for the purposes of this video, we'll just set that one aside, okay? The first time I was introduced to flipping real estate, it was the fast kind, where you buy a property and as quickly as possible you find a buyer so that you can offload it on them for a profit and not actually even get involved in all the finances and stuff like that. So your basic effort is to do it so quickly, you're not even looking for a loan for yourself. You're just passing it off. You're a middleman or middlewoman, middle person, yeah? Middle thing, I don't know. With today's gender questions, I don't even know what to say anymore. So I'm just going to say middle person because, heck, there are women and men out there that I'm sure we can be sure about. Okay, so flipping, when I first heard about it, sounded great. Buy something, get it out from under you as quickly as possible, and pocket several $1,000s potentially, or even more maybe if you find the right buyer. And I was going to do that. I went to this free seminar about it with a friend of mine, and they had collected the relevant information from the public libraries and other public sources for the laws in the state that I was in, which was Colorado, regarding doing this kind of thing. And they had compiled that all in, and you paid them a sum of money, which was, I'm going to say $1,000. And they would, on top of that stack of public documents, which I think was about this thick, yeah, a couple inches thick, they would also provide you with personal assistance, guidance, and stuff like that. So you'd have your own advisor, basically, to help you through the process to become successful. I started looking at properties, and I quickly came to realize two things. I didn't really know enough about it, and I'm not so really into the whole buying and selling thing. And I gave it to a friend. I said, here, go ahead and make use of this information. Maybe it'll help you. And swallowed the loss. And that was okay, because, I've been thinking about it recently, because 2 doors down from where I am right now, which is my sister's house in Ohio, there was a house that was repossessed by the bank because the people living there had, unsurprisingly, they had failed to pay their mortgage for quite some time. And so the real estate company works with a flipping group or people, whatever you want to call them. And so they came in there, and they were in there remodeling the place. Now, this is a little bit different from what I've been introduced to, the fast flipping. I would call this short-term flipping, because the guy that I spoke to, who was he was basically the boss of the team that's remodeling, revamping the house, fixing things that are damaged and whatnot, he told me he wanted it done in 90 days so he could resell it. He said, if I remember correctly, he said that they got it with the help of the real estate team. That's a partnership, okay? For $100,000, they're going to resell it for about $150,000. So they have filled in the pool. There was a pool in the back. He said that the pump was gone or wasn't working or something like that. And there were some cracks in it, but otherwise it was a very, very solidly built pool. The side walls were sloped and were 8 to 12 inches thick. So it wasn't a pool that was going to break very easily. But they filled it in. There had been 2 sheds on the property. One the people managed to take down and take with them before they left. The other one they only got the roof off of before they were kicked out. So he dismantled the foundation of the first one and he re-roofed the second one. They also re-roofed the home, which is a small home, maybe 1,500 square feet, and they had to gut the inside walls and the ceiling and take out all the old crappy wiring and plumbing and insulation and stuff, and redo the floors in some spots. And it was like a house from the 1970s or something. It doesn't look very nice on the outside because of the false the facade of the walls that they produced, which makes it look like it's made with solid stone and mortar, but it's not. He actually had to tear out all the doors because they were so short. So that was also a thing and there's a garage as well that he had to revamp, or they had to revamp. And he brought in subcontractors to help him with all this stuff. And they're still working on it. It's looking good. So I've been thinking about this whole flipping thing. Is flipping good? I mean, what are the benefits? Okay, so first of all, if you want to make a quick dollar and you're good at buying and selling, you could fast flip a home, and that would be good for the seller as well, because they can get that home off their hands if it's kind of been sitting in the market. Of course, then again, if a flipper is savvy, they're going to know that home has been on the market for a long time, and they may not be interested in it, or if they are interested in it, they may expect a lower price than you, the seller, is hoping for. So it may work out in your favor. It may not if you're the seller. I mean, but the buyer also takes a risk. I mean, if you manage to grab a home to flip, but you can't find a buyer quickly enough, you're going to be forced to get a loan and so on and so forth, and you might be saddled with it for a while. So there is a risk involved in that. But with the more short-term flip, where like this neighbor's house is being done, does that seem like a good thing or a bad thing? Well, again, we have the same pros and cons that I just mentioned. You can get rid of a house quickly, which is great for a bank, because the bank wants to be liquid. They don't want to be saddled with a lot of properties, so they're happy if they can get rid of it quickly. They may not get the full amount that they wanted to. He told me that they got a discount on the price that the bank had wanted. So it's a compromise, but the bank is liquid in terms of that money, and these people are going to flip it. And it's been like 2 weeks now, 2.5 weeks or so, maybe 3. So they've still got some time before they get to their deadline. But is there a downside to fast flipping or even short-term flipping? Well, let's think about that. If we look at it, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you as the seller takes a cut on your money that you wanted. So you've taken a loss. The flipper sells it quickly, whether it's a fast flip or a short-term flip where they remodel or whatever. They sell it at the price that they wanted to. They may, if they can't sell it fast enough, they may take a loss on it as well. But not a real loss, but just a reduction in their profits. And they also have a risk in that, like with the neighbor's house, they didn't know how bad the house was before they took it. So they ended up spending way more on it than they had hoped to spend on it to be able to flip it in 90 days. So that's a downside. Again, that's a risk. And who knows, will they sell it at $150,000 after that quickly or not? It's hard to say, but let's look between the lines here. The house is not being sold once, it's being sold twice. What does that mean? That means, in effect, that real estate values are being falsely inflated because the price goes up 2 times instead of just once during the sale. So that means, well, it's harder to buy in. On the flip side, maybe for people in that community who have houses, it may be a good thing because it may help them when they want to sell get a better price than they would have otherwise. So it's, kind of a plus minus thing. This community has down the street here, you can kind of see it. I'm going to flip around here just so you can see it for a minute. There's a trailer and a truck and a car and some other vehicles out front, and it's a crappy looking house. But I'm just going to move so you can take a quick look at it here. Right over there. I'm told that the people who own that property are in jail for, well, I don't really know what they're in jail for. They smashed up one of their cars to try and do a fake insurance claim. And one neighbor claims she's seen them dumping garbage and drugs and stuff on that neighbor's property. Not the neighbor who was talking, but the neighbor next to that house. So, in this case, we've got a $150,000 house going up on the market, but right down the street, about, let's see, 3, 4 houses down, there's this derelict house that nobody's currently in. The people are supposedly in jail or off somewhere. There's a trailer and some bashed up vehicles in the front, and the house looks terrible. So that's gonna have a negative impact on the real estate value, of course. So it also, I guess if somebody were to take and flip an entire community, like go up into Detroit and manage somehow to pull people in that want to get a house really cheap and then fix it up within the required time limit, that could, very dramatically increase the value of the properties there. But still. Okay, but that's not the only angle to look at here. What is genuinely going to be a downside of a house that you want to buy having been flipped for short term, like the neighbor's house here? Well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? The house isn't just being bought and sold, so you're not just getting an inflated price as the buyer. You're losing, right? You're losing because the price is artificially inflated by the flipper. The other loss you're taking is that you have had absolutely zero say in and control over the changes that were made by the flipper and his team of contractors and subcontractors, or her team, as the case may be. So, completely outside of your control, this has all been done. And it may not be what you wanted. You may have wanted that swimming pool that was in the back. Now, this is a long lot. It's a pretty sizable lot, and I would like to have it. But they filled in the swimming pool, and I was like, I understand. If you have small kids and they're hoping to maybe get a family and move in there, although it's a pretty small house for a family. But yeah, they don't want kids drowning in the pool, and some families won't buy if there's a pool or a pond in the back. I offered to dig a pond for my sister and her husband, and they said no, because in a few years we're going to sell this property, and we don't want to have less potential buyers, or fewer potential buyers, because some people will look at the pond as a liability. I wasn't planning on making anything deep, but a little kid could walk in there, get stuck in the mud, fall down face first, and drown in a matter of minutes. So I get it. But when I was living in West Allis, one of the neighbor's houses, the neighbor had died, and the family didn't want to keep the house, so they brought in some people to. Now, this isn't strictly a flip in the normal sense. This is an inheritance that got sold off, but they brought in some people to fix it up. And I went in there, and I didn't like the color scheme at all. They had put in gray carpeting, and the colors of the rooms was basically gray everywhere and white. And I was like, why'd you make it like this? Oh, that's what the market wants. I was like, well, that's not what I want. It was a nice house, too. But just because of the colors that the contractors or whoever it was had chosen, it was, it was going to turn people off. Now, no matter what color you choose, it's going to turn somebody off. But if I had a say in that, I could have said, look, here's what I want. I want purple, I want green, I want blue, maybe some red and stuff, but I do not want to see any gray or brown or any of that funky, boring stuff, okay? On the outside of the house, I want a light color because the house isn't going to heat up as much. So, getting back to the topic here, I wouldn't have bought that house, flipper or not, because it had been remodeled to the specifications of somebody other than myself, the buyer, and I would have had to have spent, if I really wanted it to look the way I wanted it to look, and if there were any hidden problems that I had to fix, I would have had to shell out X number of dollars more on top of the purchase in order to make it look the way I wanted it to look. And that's the risk that we take because we allow flipping to occur. We are putting ourselves in a position of having no control over the way a house is remodeled, the way it looks. It's all based on what the flipper and their team thinks buyers want it to be. And that's a big problem because you don't have any say. In addition, you don't have any say over the quality. Yeah? I mean, you're saying over the quality and the appearance is strictly down to, am I going to buy it and fix it or do what I want with it? Or am I not going to buy it? Or am I just going to live with it the way it is and not be, maybe not be entirely happy, but I'll have a house. So, to me, the appearance issue isn't as important. I wouldn't be happy, but I could live with a gray house. Put up some pictures and stuff like that. So at least it's homey, and other decorations. But if the changes and repairs done by the contractors don't meet my standards, then I'm definitely, or if they have somehow managed to fail the standards of the city code or whatever, or I discover that they took shortcuts or something like that, or there's something that I would have wanted as the owner to have had done during that whole process of renovation, but it didn't get done because I wasn't involved in the process. So to me, that is a bit concerning. So personally, I would be inclined to say that this is something that people need to think about. Do we really want flipping because of how it artificially inflates prices? Do we want the lack of control over appearance and quality of construction and so on and so forth? And I understand not all of you understand anything about that kind of thing, but still, you could learn, or you could ask somebody for advice. I mean, I know some things, I don't know everything, I know some things. Do we want that loss of control over what's being done to a house that we want to buy? Do we want hidden surprises? Or do we just want to say, you know what? I didn't have to deal with the hassle of fixing the house up so it looked nice again and so it was up to code, like the neighbor's house. It wasn't up to code. So hey, I'm happy with that. So that's something for you to think about. And I don't know, maybe you think that that's not good. Do we need a law to actually ban flipping? I'm not sure. I can see both ways on this issue. But maybe if you can put your thoughts in the comments and share with me anything that I didn't mention about the pros and cons of flipping, that would be great. And thank you for watching, and I hope that you learned something or if you got some benefit from this. Bye.